Welcome to 21 Conversations on Wellness. I'm just thrilled to have Varsha Naik. She is the Executive Director of RDR, that's the Regional Diversity Roundtable in Peel, but far wider than just Peel. And this is a very good friend. I hate to say it, but we've known each other for almost 20 years, believe it or not. And Varsha has been instrumental in my education in many ways, in leadership, but particularly in the issues of anti-oppression and anti-racism and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and was foundational, I think, in helping me when I was at the ministry to bring a 4-part series to them. And we've also done the same with RTO ERO. Welcome, Varsha. It's a delight to see you.
Thank you, Jim. It's my honor and my pleasure not only to have known and worked with you, but also to engage today in this conversation. And I think if we can continue to spread the word on the issue that is really hitting our communities hard, so much the better. I'm ready to do my part. And I thank you for inviting me.
Wonderful. And I have to tell you that when we're talking about wellness in this series, we're talking about wellness very broadly defined, which also deeply includes the issues of anti-racism, anti-oppression, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. But part of the education of Jim from Varsha was moving from what I would call the sort of comfortable conversations, the safe conversations, into the brave conversations. How can we bring an anti-racism, anti-oppression, DEI lens to conversations about wellness? And why is this important?
So when we're talking about wellness, we are not only referring to individual wellness. We are talking about institutional wellness. We are talking about organizational wellness. We are talking about community wellness. And no individual, no organization is operating in a silo. So what impacts the broader community impacts our organizations and impacts the individuals working in that organizations. So looking at personal, interpersonal, institutional, and community wellness is a critical part of this conversation. So you don't need to bring the issue of anti-racism and anti-oppression. It's in our face today, Jim. Whether you look at what's happening out in the community with Black Lives Matter, or whether you are talking about hate against Asians because of COVID, or whether you talk about South Asians being impacted the most in Peel region due to COVID and due to some of the systemic barriers. It is in our face. You cannot shy away from engaging in those brave conversations about race, about racism, about inclusion, about exclusion, about marginalization. And as a leader, as somebody who is invested in the human service sector, you definitely want to actively talk about how do you dismantle racism? How do you deconstruct some of the notions and some of the behaviors that we see reflected in individuals? And so the conversation around anti-racism, anti-oppression is part and parcel of being well. It's part and parcel of building a community that is healthy. You do not want to talk about it as a one-off, let's tick it off and we've done the training, we've done the conversation and we are done. No, it needs to be very thoughtfully, very systematically inserted in everything that we do, Jim.
So this is really an interesting dilemma, I think, for some, because as much as you are saying exactly how I feel and how many, many people feel that these issues are so front and center in front of us these days, how could one miss it? Yet I know that many do, and for not very good reasons in many cases. But what are those systemic barriers that we need to address as leaders when we're thinking about talking about wellness in the broadest sense, especially when talking about anti-racism and anti-oppression, if we're not there already ourselves?
Jim, again, you hit a great point in terms of why are we still shying away from speaking about it. As you well know, that systems and structures are rooted in behaviors, services, and practices and policies that serve communities inequitably. They are not created to level the playing field. And what are some of the must-dos in terms of addressing this system in systems? One, you need to build trust amongst all of your stakeholders and not just your employees. Your employees are your immediate group that you begin to work with, but you want to engage all of your stakeholders. So whether you have, the community that you serve broadly, or whether you have some members, or whether you have your funders, you want to continue to leverage and build trust amongst all of them. One, you want to unite your team. You do not want to fraction off your team. You want to continue to enhance building a cohesive team, and which is inclusive. So you need to invest in training them, looking at building their capacity to understand their personal bias, their personal agendas, but moving them towards an organizational agenda. And what are you moving towards? What are you trying to create here that will ensure that no group gets left behind? So whether it is the LGBTQ community, whether it is the Black community, whether it is those who are with learning disabilities, those who are disabled in terms of persons with disability, you look at whether they're seniors, they're youth, you look at any component of the subgroup that gets marginalized or that gets disadvantaged. You want to continue to address that systematically.
Varsha, I'm just thinking, I love what you've just said. And I'm thinking of leaders like myself, or a principal in a school, or a superintendent or director of education with very serious responsibilities, very serious obligations for serving the people you work with and the people you're working in terms of children in an equitable, liberated fashion, opening the doors as much as possible. And so it falls to the leader to keep that conversation going, to create some learning, and just be an ever-present reminder that there are issues related to anti-oppression, anti-racism, and diversity, equity, inclusion. From a leader's perspective, a convinced leader's perspective, doing that all the time, how do they know they're making a difference?
Definitely, Jim. One thing is to seek feedback. Seek feedback from the groups that you claim to be creating a level playing field for. Do you have voices within your organizations, within your service component, within your schools that will tell you honestly and frankly, without personal bias, that yes, it's making a difference, or no, we still need more work done? So putting some tracking measures in place, ensuring that you are creating evidence-informed practice around equity and inclusion is a critical component of measuring whether you are moving or whether you are remaining static, and your conversation is much more, good words and not enough action.
Yeah, and there's lots of words. Hopefully there's lots more action.
Absolutely.
And hopefully people are asking, how is this working? So let's just go one step farther.
Okay.
And how can we as leaders practice effective allyship to improve wellness for racialized groups and individuals? And what does it mean to be an ally?
Good call. Jim, let's begin by understanding that when you are an ally, that means that you are not the one with that lived experience.
Right.
Which means that you, by the sheer nature of how society is formed, are privileged. You have certain power and you have certain privilege, which the other group that you are wanting to serve or wanting to address is not having. So being an ally, first and foremost, begins by acknowledging that you have certain privilege, but you need to acknowledge that you are on the learning journey, and you will never really know what the groups have gone through or have experienced. You need to let them teach you around what their experiences have been. The second thing that you want to do is to draw upon their wisdom. So you incorporate, you are never going to know that lived experience, but the next best thing is that you hear from those with lived experience as guides and as wisdom givers. It may also require gaining greater awareness and understanding of what their needs are, what their struggles are, what their challenges are. If you are a self-learner, Jim, I would say read up on it. You want to also look about who are continuing to be disadvantaged in our community. Be a critical thinker, be a reflective leader, be a responsive leader. So you want to not only just take note, but you want to then do what's good for that particular group and that community. You may want to engage as an ally in supporting them with your own knowledge and leadership by being, advocating for their issues. You can certainly join them in their advocacy work. If it's a protest, it's a march, you may join them, you may support them. You may certainly profile it in your work to say, here is an inequity, folks, we need to pay attention, we need to support and take actions. And most importantly, you ensure that you are there as a back-end support and that you are not leading. Sometimes you lead from behind, and as an ally, you definitely lead from behind.